a year ago today, TV weather presenter Ruth Dodsworth's life changed forever when her ex-husband was sentenced to 3 years in prison after pleading guilty to charges of coercive behaviour and stalking. But already there's the possibility he'll be let out by the end of this year. Ruth will be joining us in just a minute, but first, this is her story.
Hello there, very good morning to you.
Ruth Dodsworth has been a weather presenter on ITV Wales for the last 25 years.
Temperature-wise, still feeling very fine, highs well into the 20s,
But behind the smile, she was hiding a dark secret, as she faced nearly a decade of abuse and coercive control at the hands of her husband of 18 years. After speaking out, her now ex-husband was jailed in April 2021 for 3 years. Now, a year on, Ruth's ex-husband could be released from prison after serving just half of his sentence. Ruth joins us today to share her story. Well, welcome to the show, Ruth.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Nice to see you. Coercive control is something quite new to the general public. It's something that the law is now finally catching up with, thank goodness. Yeah. Just to get a kind of a flavour, just tell us about your marriage and kind of how it started and then how the coercive control sort of came about.
Well, I suppose that the key thing is that I didn't know what coercive control actually was, and I'm still learning, but my relationship is absolutely one defined by coercive control. So, like any new relationship, it all happens very fast, it's all very lovely, it's a little bit of jealousy, possessiveness, which you think, oh, actually, this is quite nice, he must really love me. And then there's a line that you start to cross then where suddenly that jealousy and that possessiveness becomes almost like, it becomes overwhelming and overpowering, and suddenly, you know, there were friends of his that I wasn't allowed to speak to, contacts in my phone that started disappearing, and suddenly then you realise that you haven't seen your family for a while, you've lost contact with your friends, and it's all very insidious. It happens kind of almost under the radar, and I think that's the thing. It's a type of domestic abuse, but it's not necessarily visible. Subtle. It's not... Yeah, so subtle. So subtle, in fact, that I lived with it for 20 years, and, you know, I knew that it wasn't right, I knew something was wrong, but I certainly didn't know that it was coercive control, and I certainly didn't know that was a crime in itself. And thank goodness, like you said, Jane, you know, 2015 in England and Wales, it was made a crime. Not the same everywhere, so that's something we're fighting now to get this out into the public.
Just for people watching at home, because, you know, a lot of people might be suspecting this in their own lives. Yeah. Just tell us about your daily life and some of the things that he would do that would indicate.
So, I mean, I look back now, and this was almost there from day one. I mean, you know, little things like losing contact with your friends and waking up in the morning, kind of treading on eggshells, thinking, like, what kind of mood is he going to be in today? And that's very typical of these people, is that, you know, it's that Jekyll and Hyde when he was nice. Oh,
because there was the charming side, I imagine.
Absolutely.
I've been there.
He was the nicest person. He could walk in here now, sit down with us and just be charm personified, but that didn't last, and I think that, and the frightening thing is, you never knew when it was going to switch. So, and he could go just like that. Yeah, so constantly walking on eggshells in a sense. So I'd leave home in the morning and I'd be in tears going to work, because invariably we'd have had an argument over something just silly. And you know, I'd go to work plaster my telly face on, because I work in television in Wales. Walk into the studio, smile. Spend all day like that, and then go home again in tears, not wanting to go home. And then, you know, it could be really, you know, your dinner's on the table, nicey. If I was 5 minutes late, well, hang on a minute, where have you been? Where have you been? Accusations. Who are you talking to? If I had to go away filming,
and then you felt guilty.
Yeah. So if I was away filming, when I got there, the first thing I'd have to do was ring him and sort of FaceTime to show him the room, to show him that I was where I said I was, that there was no one else there with me.
And you start to normalise that yourself internally.
Absolutely.
And I believe he used your thumb sometimes while you were asleep to open your phone.
Yeah, to get into my phone. My phone has got a PIN number. It's an ITV phone, so it's got to have a PIN number, just in case I lose it, someone finds it. The fact that I had a PIN number on it, he absolutely hated, because he felt I was hiding something. So, yeah, I woke up in the middle of the night and he'd had my thumb on the print, and his excuse was he wanted to check his lottery tickets. Well, use your own phone for that, you know.
What would you say, Ruth, when you built up the courage to accuse him and to question his behaviour? Was it that it was always your fault?
Always my fault, absolutely. I mean, this is a man who spent his whole life, I think it's safe to say, blaming other people, and nothing, even now, you know, it's still my fault. This is all because of my behaviour, and, you know, I did nothing wrong. I wanted to keep my family together, so I stayed, because you feel like that's the right thing to do.
Yes, because many people love to say, why didn't you just leave?
Why did you not?
Ask what the turning point was. I know you said there was one day in particular that the behaviour was quite different and your children got involved with that.
OK, so
what was that turning point day?
Looking back now, and this, I think, was a mistake. I was deeply unhappy. He knew that, and I told him a few years ago that I wanted... The marriage was over, and he knew that. But that made it worse, because that made his behaviour more and more. You know, he was fighting because I was his possession, and how dare you go? So in the run-up to this one particular night, I mean, I think, you know, phone calls. I'm going to say hundreds, literally hundreds of phone calls a day. Where are you? If I didn't answer, he'd just keep ringing, text messages. And then one particular night, day, I'd gone to work as normal, left, normal day. But during the course of that day, he must have started drinking pretty early on. The phone calls, the messages, the where are you? And actually, by the time my kids got home from school, they were then ringing me saying, Mum, look, we're OK, but for goodness sake, do not come home. If you come home, he will kill you. And absolutely, he would have done wholeheartedly.
You now, you know, what you're doing is excellent. You're advocating for so many women, you know, and it's so important because, like you said, it's not visual and it's something people need to be educated on. And it's so great that you're able to be on this platform and communicate that.
Yeah.
But I wondered, do you have frustrations with the parole board? Because for me, this just illustrates, just like with Angel Lynn, how the parole board got that sentencing wrong. You know, we're hearing now your ex had a 3-year sentence but could be out in a year.
Well, even worse than that, he could have been out now, because what they don't tell you is, yes, you've got to serve a minimum of half. He was told that by the judge, but then 4 months prior to that, he can apply for early release, home release. So yes, he'd be tagged on it, but he'd still be out. And I think, you know, you're in a similar position. You can't keep people behind bars forever. You can't do that. And, you know, everyone's got rights and so on. But it was a year ago today that the judge said to him, you're evil and you're a danger to your wife and your children. Now,
and he may come out this October.
Yeah. How much of that has changed?
Well, he showed no remorse.
No, and it's my fault. When he, you know, he was sent. The judge told him, "You've shown no remorse." That was his probation. People say to me, you know, do I think he got long enough? And that's such a difficult question, because I never set out to send him to prison. You know, I'm human, and I've had to wrestle with the fact that I feel I've sent this man to prison. You know, he's my children's father.
No,
but the police and so on have been so fantastic in saying, look, you're not doing this, he's doing this to himself. So it's such a difficult question to ask, you know, how long should he have got? How long should anybody get? Because I think at the end of the day, everyone's different. But I would like to think and hope that he'd come out a better person.
Ruth, can I ask, because there may be women out there now going through, hearing it, alarm bells ringing, that's me. How did you get help?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's women, it's men, it's people of all... This can happen to absolutely anybody, any background. It doesn't matter who you are. I knew I had to get out. I think ultimately the decision was almost taken away from me, because it was live or die. But for so many people, you know, getting out is the hardest thing to do. You know, I had no money. I hadn't told anybody, so... Who was I suddenly going to ask? Where was I going to go? You know, you're packing a bag and disappearing with 2 teenage kids. It's easier said than done. But my advice to anybody watching this, man, woman, it doesn't matter who you are, if you know deep down, or if you recognise the signs in yourself or someone that you know, it's the hardest thing in the world to ask for help. But, oh, my gosh, if I hadn't done that, I would be dead.
And you and your daughter, Grace, you're campaigning for change. Tell us very quickly what the change is.
I mean, I've got this, you know, I've been on television, I'm a communicator, and I've found myself now in this position where I'm able to speak up, maybe for people who can't speak up, who haven't got that voice. And so, you know, it's all very well asking people to speak up and come forward, but they've got to feel that they're going to be listened to and believed. So, you know, this goes further than just me. The ripple effect is massive. But, you know, I was lucky in that the police who dealt with my case saw what wasn't there as opposed to what was. So it could have just been, an argument between a husband and wife, but they saw actually there was more to it. And so, you know, the authorities, the police need better training, and they've admitted, look, we need you to help us now so that we can make it better for the next person. And that's absolutely what this is all about.
And I think also you just coming to talk to us today is A, very courageous, and B, very necessary. And, you know, thank you so much
Thank you.
And, you know, good luck with your campaigning for that change.
It doesn't ever go away, but I just want to say life can be really good, and I've got a life now.
And you're showing your children that, and I think that's great that you and Grace are coming at it together. I think that's super positive.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's
Lovely
your
Grace.
daughter Grace there. OK, well, if you've been affected by anything that we've been discussing with Ruth today, there is help available. You can visit our website to find out more. And thank you again, Ruth.